All right, Boker Tov. So today's daf is Tzadi Aleph, 91. We pick up, we're a little bit behind. We pick up in the middle of Tzadi Amud Bet, 90b, and we pick up with the Achas B'chayav. It is 5 lines down in the wide line. And we're dealing with the issue of this complicated case. So our new participants came at a perfect time, which basically is Ruvain is married to 2 wives. First, he marries Rachel, who has a ksuva of $20,000. Rachel dies, so he keeps that money that otherwise he would have paid out to Rachel. But the principle of ksuvas bin dichrin means that when he dies, Rachel's kids are going to get that prior to any other kids he's got. And then he also married Leah, and Leah survives his death. So now Leah's kids are coming to collect their mother's ksuva. They're basically acting as creditors, whereas Rachel's kids want to get their $20,000 that their mom, that their father inherited from their mom as an inheritance. Okay, so they're coming as heirs, and they want their chunk before the whole estate gets divided. And Leah or Leah's kids are coming as creditors, and they want Leah's ksuva paid up. So that's called achas b'chayav v'achas b'moso. Okay, these guys, their mother died when Reuven was alive. Here, their mother basically died after Reuven had died. These are coming from the principle of ksuvas bin dichrin as heirs, and Leah's kids are coming as creditors or as children of the creditors. And the basic ruling of the Mishnah is that Leah the kids collect their ksuva, and then what's remainder, then Rachel's kids get their portion as their inheritance, and then the rest is divided. Okay, that was yes.
Debt trumps inheritance.
Debt. Well, yeah, that's always the case. Somebody dies, the creditors come and they collect from the estate. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. But the question, if you remember, that we raised yesterday was whether in this case Rachel's kids are entitled to any special chunk, because Leah's kids could say, why do you get a larger portion of the estate? When both Leah and Rachel had died before Reuven, so Leah's kids gets the portion that their mother, had brought in, that was their mother's ksuva as their first takeaway from the estate, and Leah's kids get what their mother's ksuva as their first takeaway from the estate, and the rest is divided equally. They both are entitled to the special ruling of ksuvas bin dichrin, right, of inheriting their mother's ksuva. But in this case, Leah's kids aren't inheriting their mother's ksuva. Reuven died before Leah. They're just collecting their mother's debt. So maybe they should be able to say to Rachel's kids, it's not fair that you get a special right as an inheritance that we're not getting. So that's the question.
In, right?
What?
I mean, it was written in as a clause. It wasn't just otherwise applied.
Yeah, sometimes it was, sometimes it isn't. Like, we don't write it in. It was just one of those Tanai based. Okay.
Now it's assumed that way?
Yeah. But it is true. The Gemara definitely did have it at times that was written in. So the Gemara says like this. So achas b'chai v'achas b'moso. So now it says the Gemara 5 lines down in the wide lines on Tzadi Amud Bet. So this issue of one while he's alive and one, set of kids after, and Leah died after he died. Tonight, this is the debate of the Tanaim whether the principle of ksuvas bin dichrin still applies. The Tanaim we told in the Brisa. Mesu. So here it's explicit. The wives died. Achas b'chayav. One died while he was alive. Rachel died while he was alive. V'achas b'moso. And then Leah died after he had died. So with exactly this case, Benanis says, Yicholim b'nei Rishona lomar b'nei Hashniya. So the children of the first one could say to the children of the second one, meaning Rachel's kids could say to Leah's kids, B'nei balas chovatem. You are heirs of your mother who had a debt against the estate. Because our father died while your mother was still alive, so your mother's had a debt of the ksuva against the estate. Go take your mother's ksuva and leave. Okay, Rabbi Kiva Omer, now which basically means take your mother's ksuva and leave, and then presumably, and we'll get our larger portion of the estate. Rabbi Akiva Omer, now Rabbi Akiva says, the special inheritance that the children of the first one would get, that Rachel's kids would get, has jumped away from them and has fallen in front of the Leah's kids. Now that's very colorful language, but it's not exactly clear what he's saying, but it's pretty clear. What he's basically saying is that they had this $20,000 they were going to take away from the estate, and somehow they lost their grip on it. Okay, they're not going to get it. It's now all going to be evenly divided. So basically, Bananas says, was it Bananas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bananas is the first.
Yeah, Bananas basically says, Leah's kids come and they take their mother's debt, and then Rachel's kids are still entitled to their special portion of the estate. And Rabbi Akiva says, I'm sorry, they lose their special portion. It all gets divided equally. So let's take a look. So the Gemara says like this. Wow, a lot of commotion going on today. So the Gemara says like this.
Very hot topic.
I understand. My love, don't we say this is what they're debating about? The Mars Savar Achas B'chai V'Achas B'Motza Yeshan Ksuvas B'Nin Dichrin. One Bananas says they're still entitled. So as long as to their special select section of the estate, even though only Rachel's kids are entitled to that and not Leah's kids. Umar Savar, the other one holds Achas B'chai V'Achas B'Motza Elam Ksuvas B'Nin Dichrin. And Rabbi Akiva says no, they're not. Since they're not both getting it as a special inheritance, then Rachel's kids lose out. So that sounds like what they're debating. So the Gemara says, I'm a Rabba. So Rabba says, I found the rabbis, of the house of Rav, of the yeshiva of Rav, the Yasvi V'Kamri, and they were analyzing this debate of Rabbi Akiva and Menadas, where it certainly sounds like this is what they're debating. And they said the following, not necessarily. We could say everybody agrees that basically in this type of a case, Rachel's kids are entitled to their special, to get their special section of the estate before it gets divided equally. They're debating the issue we said, because you'll remember that even when there is ksuvas b'nin dichrin, that's only when there is leftover money to apply the normal rules of inheritance to. You can't have ksuvas b'nin dichrin being the entire amount of the estate. There has to be leftover money for there to be a normal inheritance. So in this case, Leah's kids come, they take out their $10,000 estate, their $10,000 debt. All you're left with is the $20,000. There's nothing more. So if Rachel's kids come and they take their mother's special inheritance, $20,000, nobody gets a normal inheritance. Nothing gets divided equally. Okay, so that's what Rabbi Akiva is saying. Rabbi Akiva is saying basically, you had it in your grasp, but it jumped away from you. Jumped away from you because there's nothing left over to divide equally. Now we're going to have to divide that. You lost your special rights to that. Whereas Bananas is going to say, no. There was a normal inheritance. Right? What was that normal inheritance? The money that Leah's kids as creditors came to collect, that was being paid out by the estate. So that was what was inherited equally by all of the heirs. They paid out the creditors, all the heirs paid out the creditors. Then there was $20,000 left that Rachel's kids walked away with. Okay, so that is okay because it is like there is stuff that the normal rules of inheritance apply to. That was the money the heirs paid out to Leah.
Did Rachel's kids throw in $1?
No, and we're going to see that later.
What I understand is why does it have to be a normal inheritance?
That's just what the rabbi said. They're not going to make this rule of giving Rachel's kids a special status of an heirs to override the Torah's normal division of inheritance. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. When one ksuva, Leah's ksuva, be considered that the money paid out, basically is considered leftover funds, as it was, to allow Rachel's ksuva to be effective. Meaning the fact that they paid out Leah's ksuva means that there was money, that there was a normal part of the inheritance that existed, so that now that's like the most sardina, the extra money, so that Rachel's kids can still collect. It would have been the same question if it was just some stranger coming and collecting and the estate paid out. Would money that the estate paid out be considered, so there was a normal inheritance that took place, and now Rachel's kids are entitled to their special inheritance?
Right?
Well, yes, we'll worry about that. Yes, but that is correct. Okay, so that's how they explain the debate. Okay, that's reasonable. So they're not debating in principle whether Rachel's kids have a right to it, but whether this is a case that they're entitled to it. Was there any leftover money in the estate? And now says Rabba, I said back to them. Yeah, I read that. Okay, and I said back to them, no. In a simple case where some stranger came, where, I don't know, Barak, no, and I'm getting back to when we learned Yevamos, Barak was always the stranger. He wasn't part of the same family. Okay, so when Barak came and he collected his $10,000 debt, then everybody would agree, okay, you paid off some stranger from the estate. That was the normal inheritance, right? And that everybody paid equally, and all of the heirs equally owed that debt and paid it from their estate. And then, so there was leftover, there was a part that there was a normal inheritance, and now Rachel's kids are entitled to get their special inheritance. So if it was a stranger, everybody would agree that Rachel's kids would be entitled. Ki pligi, what do they debate? B'ksuva. In this case where it's not Barak's kids that are coming, Leah's kids are coming to collect their mother's debt. So in that case, basically Leah's kids could say, we didn't get a normal part of the inheritance. So when Rachel's kid says, oh yes, you did get a normal part of the inheritance, we all got it, and then we used it to pay you up. So when you're paying yourself back for your own debt, it's not so much like, it's different, right? It doesn't feel like basically that was a normal part of the process of inheritance that took place. No. We're first getting paid and then we'll worry about inheritance. You don't see it as though we all inherited and now we're paying ourselves. Okay, so that's the issue. So basically we get back to this question. In this special case, there's a couple of questions whether Rachel's kids get to take out their mother's ksuva. Number one, because Leah's kids aren't in that status. Leah's kids aren't in the status of special heirs. Leah's kids are coming as creditors. And number two, thank you, even when we do say Rachel's kids in principle are entitled, that's only when there's leftover money in the estate afterwards. Is it considered leftover money of the estate if there's no leftover money because money was used to pay out a creditor? And that would be a question of a general creditor. And it's maybe even a harder answer to say yes to when the creditor is actually Leah's kids themselves. Yes.
So this is really just a matter of technicality in some ways, because if I were just, let's say, bequeath it, is it in matana?
Yeah.
I give a matana of 10,000, I give a matana of 20,000, so you don't need that extra dinar.
Right, correct. Correct, but we're not going to give them a position of special heirs to override a natural inheritance. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. That was very quickly lived. We're going to look forward to seeing you tomorrow. All right. Well, keep on trying. All right. So the Gemara says like this. Maskif la Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef asked on what Rav said. Rabbi Akiva Omer. If that's true, then why do we have it phrased that Rabbi Akiva is saying for kaftsa nachala, that the inheritance jumped away from Rachel's kids? They lost their grip on their special inheritance. Okay, since what he's really not saying is that not in principle they didn't have a right to it, but it was just circumstantially because there was no leftover money. So he should have been more specific. He should have said, "Im yoish moser dinar mi bayale." He should have said, "Rachel's kids can get it if there's leftover money." So since he didn't say that, it sounded like, in principle, Rabbi Akiva would say that in this type of case, Rachel's kids are never going to get it. Elama Rav Yosef, so rather Rav Yosef says, they really do debate the fundamental principle, okay? So this case, he says, Rabbi Akiva is saying that Rachel's kids don't get it. It's not because it was a special circumstance that there was not any leftover money in the estate. Rabbi Akiva in principle is saying the only time Rachel's kids have an opportunity to be special heirs is when Leah's kids are special heirs as well. But if Leah's kids are not special heirs, they're coming as creditors, then Rachel's kids do not have their status. Okay, so that remains the debate. The Hani Tanaki, Hani Tanai, and these Tanaim of Rabbi Akiva and Ben Nanis, who debate this issue about do we say Ksuvas Benin Dichrin when it only applies to one set of kids, is like the following Tanaim. The Tanaim we turn the Braisa, Nasa es harishona umeita. So a man married the first wife, Rachel, and then Rachel died. Okay, so again, it's the same case. Nasa es harishnia, then he married the second wife, Leah, umeitu, and he died. The kids of this wife, not clear which wife, but there's a question there of what the gersa was. Anyway, we're talking about Leah's kids. Leah's kids come la'achar misa after their mother has now died. Because remember, first Reuven died, and then Leah still survived him. So now their mother has died, and now they come. No link suasiman, and they collect their mother's ksuva. Okay, that's not a big chiddush. Of course, they collect the ksuva. Reb Shimon Omer. Now, Reb Shimon says, "Im yesh moser dinar." If there's that extra dinar after the money's been paid out, then Elu Notling Ksuvas Iman ve'Elu Notling Ksuvas Iman. Then Rachel's kids, not only can Leah's kids get their mother's ksuva, Rachel's kids can get their mother's ksuva as well as special heirs. But if there's not an extra dinar, right, left over in the estate, then Cholkim B'Shava, they divide equally. So Reb Shimon basically is reiterating this principle that we know that there has to be a leftover dinar in order for the Rachel's kids to have this position of special heirs. Okay, fine. But in principle, Rachel's kids are entitled to take their mother's ksuva out of the estate. Even though Leah's kids are not coming as special heirs, they're coming as creditors. What is the first position? The first position doesn't mention Rachel's kids. The first position just says Leah's kids come and collect. Sounds like Rachel's kids get nothing. I mean, they're equal. They don't get any special ksuva, right? So it sounds like they're debating whether, in this case, that these here are that these are heirs and these are creditors, whether Rachel's kids are entitled to their status as special heirs. Okay. The second position, I'm forgetting who said it. Reb Shimon said yes, as long as there's that extra dinar. But the first position did not indicate that Rachel's kids get any special takeaway. Let me just read 1 minute. Okay, so my love. So the Gemara says, this sounds like the debate. One, and now we're actually saying it in the opposite order. But okay, Rabbi Shimon holds that the Rachel's kids are entitled to Ksuvas B'nin Dichrin as long as there's that extra dinar. Umar Sav and the other holds, no, Rachel's kids are not entitled to their special status, and Leah's kids get their ksuva and mother's ksuva, and then the rest is divided equally. So, okay, so you had a question, Jonathan?
Make sure that when we're translating special heirs, we're referring to B'nai Dichrin, right?
Yes, I was using that because it occurred to me that that's a nice sort of way. Yes, that's the phrase I just coined, so I can for Ksuvas B'nai Dichrin.
Could you re-clarify, like, what's the difference between what B'nai Dichrin adds and the fact that the sons normally inherit the mother?
Because if there are sons from a different mother, then if you just apply the normal rules of inheritance, everybody would get an equal portion. But if the sons, but Rachel's kids, before the whole estate is divided equally, they first take out the money that was in their mother's ksuva. Okay, so the mother brought in $20,000 in their ksuva, or however much she brought in, but the face value of the ksuva was $20,000. It was never paid out because their mother died before their father died, so the father never paid that ksuva out to their mother. So they now take $20,000 out of the estate when their father dies, before it now gets divided equally among all the heirs.
So this is a vehicle really for protecting the inheritance of the children of one mother as opposed to the children of
and actually what the Gemara,
mothers.
correct, and actually as the way the Gemara says is that it gets back to the whole social realities about the ksuva, is that a father who is not going to give a big dowry to his daughter if he thinks maybe my daughter will have one kid and this guy will marry another woman and have 10 kids, and this huge dowry I'm giving my daughter is not going to stay within my grandchildren, within my family. So now I know that however much money I give to my daughter when she's getting married to the dowry will stay with her kids. Okay, so now the Gemara, yeah.
You say the extra dinar is after what happens?
After that if after Rachel's kids were to take their special inheritance, there would be a leftover dinar, then that allows them to take their special inheritance. But if by taking their special inheritance, no money is left over in the estate, then they're not. Then they lose that right.
And they're taking it after the second children are getting their.
Yeah, exactly. And that becomes the question: does the money used to pay the second children count as that extra money or not? That's the other question. All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. It's all the same question being asked in different ways. So the Gemara says like this. That's not necessarily the debate of Reb Shimon and the Tanna Kama. We could say that everybody agrees in principle Rachel's kids are entitled to it. So why does it sound like the Tanna Kama ignored Rachel's kids? The Hacha, top of Tzadiyat al-Hamad Aleph. So now, Michael, you always anticipate everything the word's going to say. The question is, when we say we have to have leftover money in landed property or any leftover money? Okay, so he's saying that it's only if there's leftover money in landed property that's considered, because that was considered like obviously like the real, sort of a symbol of the inheritance. Even though, of course, nowadays obviously you could have billions of dollars in some stock or whatever, but nevertheless that was considered to be the real thing. So that would be what would be symbolic of actually having a real biblical inheritance, was that there was some landed estate that they divided equally. Okay, Mar Savar Mikarkai in Metaltalai Lo. So one holds that only if it's landed estate. So therefore, Tanakama was saying Rachel's kids don't get it because we'd be talking about a case where there was no landed estate left over, that extra dinar left over. Umar Savar and Rabbi Shimon says, Afilu Mataltali, even if there's any extra dinar left over that entitles Rachel's kids, even from cattle. So the Gemara says, how could you say that? The Rabbi Shimon says that any extra dinar, even from cattle, allows this to operate. That's not. We're going to teach in the Mishnah at the bottom of this page, actually. We're about to see. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, even if there is property that is unencumbered, meaning not unencumbered, that would never be encumbered, meaning if there's chattel, even if there's leftover chattel, Eino Klum, it doesn't count to allow, Rachel's kids to take their ksuvas benin dichrin. Okay, that doesn't count as money left over in the estate to allow the special status of ksuvas benin dichrin to apply. If you want the special, a rule of ksuvas benin dichrin to apply, then we say there has to be some money left over after everybody takes away their special inheritance. Okay, that only will be if what's left over is actually a piece of land. If there's a piece of land worth a dinar left over, then we'll say it. But otherwise, we won't say. We won't say
different appraiser.
Right, exactly. Or I don't know, why can't people say like, okay, I will take my inheritance from the chattel so that the land will be left over? Right, maybe they can't say that. Okay, anyway, Ella, so it can't be that Rabbi Shimon is saying, oh, no, they're entitled because it doesn't have to be from land. Because Rabbi Shimon is the one that actually says it has to be from land, the leftover, in order for them to be entitled. Okay, here the question is, let's say there is a leftover amount, but that leftover amount is actually somebody else has a lien on it. Okay, so here's the actual scenario. You get it, right? So you got these two kids. They're coming, even if simpler case than this, each set of kids is coming with their own special inheritance to take out before anything gets divided. Obviously, the ones that get a bigger chunk are the ones that want to ensure the special rules apply. Okay, and they're coming, and there has to be, after everybody takes out their special inheritance, something left over. There will be something left over, but what's left, and it will even be land. The only problem is that there are some creditors that's got their eyes on that. They've got some liens on that. So basically they say, oh, that's not really like there's anything left over because we're all going to lose it sooner or later because the creditors are going to come and take it, right? So it's not really left over, which somewhat relates to the idea of maybe actually money paid to creditors counts as leftover.
So could the kids pay off the lien so that they have the land?
That would be like the smart thing to do is first pay off the lien before it gets around. I mean, then the question is like, at what moment do you assess what the status is, which is what we're going to get to it. But yes, that would be the smart thing to do. What we learned earlier is that even if the land was already paid to creditors, it might count as if it was left over because then the estate paid the creditor. That's like the estate, everybody inherited it. Here we're going even further. Not only if it's paid doesn't count, maybe even the fact that it might get paid, right, that it has a lien on it might make it considered not leftover property to allow these special rules to apply. Okay? Mar Savar, the Tanakama, who basically says that Rachel's kids get nothing, would be a case where the leftover amount would have been encumbered, would have had liens on it. And the Tanakama said, no, it's only going to count as a leftover amount if it's unencumbered, if it has no liens on it. Not if it has liens on it, and therefore Rachel's kids get nothing. Umar Savan, Rabbi Shimon says, as long as there's a dinar left over, Rachel's kids get. He holds afilu mishabdi that no, even if that extra dinar has a lien on it, as long as there's some extra dinar of land, even if it has a lien on it, Rachel's kids are entitled. So that's a reasonable read. Although again, it's reading a lot into the Breita. Right, exactly. But it's reading a lot into the Breita because the Breita didn't say it was a special case, that there was something anyway. But okay, that's what it wants to say. The debate is. Ihachi says, if that's true, so Rabbi Shimon is coming to be like lenient, as it were, for Rachel's kids and saying, as long as there's an extra dinar, even if it has liens on it, Rachel's kids are entitled. If that's true, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Im yesha moser dinar, if there's an extra dinar, then Rachel's kids will get it. That's not phrased right. That sounds like that he's making a demand. I'm not going to let you guys get it unless you've got an extra dinar. What you're telling me is Rabbi Shimon is actually coming and saying that he's lowering the demands. So what it should have said was, Im yesha moser dinar, he should have said, Kevan sheyesha moser dinar mi bayile. He should have said, look, You Tanakama say the kids don't get it because it's encumbered. I say as long as since there's a dina there, they're entitled even if it has liens on it. Okay, so the language where Rabbi Shimon says im yesham sounds like Rabbi Shimon is creating greater demands, not lesser demands. Okay, so that does not work with the way we're trying to frame it. So again, it sounds like the Tanakama is saying that Rachel's kids get nothing. Rabbi Shimon is saying Rachel's kids are entitled if there is a dinar. So one way to explain that is this fundamental question of when they're coming from different positions, are Rachel's kids entitled at all? Echad b'chayev achas b'moso. The Gemara is trying to say maybe they argue a smaller point. Everybody agrees in principle they're entitled. The question is some of the details. But if that's true, we have to structure it so that it works with the language of Rabbi Shimon, where it sounds like Rabbi Shimon is actually being more strict, not being more lenient. Okay, so we had a reasonable read, but it just didn't work with the close reading of the language. So let's see where the Gemara goes from here. So the Gemara says like this. So the Gemara says, right, Ella b'pachos midina k'miflagi. Fine. The debate is, until now we've been assuming that there has to be a dinar in order to allow this special status to apply. What if it was a half a dinar? Maybe there's an opinion that would also be enough. Ela b'pachos mi-dinar k'miflagi. Mar savar dinar in pachos mi-dinar lo. Umar savar afilu pachos mi-dinar. So maybe the Tanakama says they don't get it because there wasn't a dinar's worth left over. And Rabbi Shimon is saying you don't need a full dinar's worth. Okay, as long as there's even less than a dinar. The problem is that Rabbi Shimon says, im yesham dinar. So the Gemara, what type of crazy answer was that? So the Gemara says, Va Rabbi Shimon dinar kamar. Rabbi Shimon says, if there's a dinar. And if you say, well, let's reverse it, maybe we'll basically wind up saying that the Tanakama requires less than a dinar, and Rabbi Shimon is being more strict and requires a dinar. But it says the next Mishnah, which remember we've been quoting from the next Mishnah, you're going to have Rabbi Shimon in his coming Mishnah at the bottom of the page, where he's going to say an extra dinar. The Tanakama also says an extra dinar. So both the Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon assume a dinar, and that we're assuming is also the same positions in the Breita we quoted. So we're still trying to figure out what are they debating, where the Tanakama says the kids of the second one don't get, of Rachel's kids don't get it, and Rabbi Shimon says they do get it. The most easy thing to say is that they're debating exactly the fundamental principle of achas b'chayev achas b'mosa. But the Gemara is trying to make it a more technical debate. Okay, so the Gemara says, Ella, says the Gemara, Kianach trei lishnai kama ve'epach. We'll go like the first two explanations we said, that Rabbi Shimon is basically saying that that the issue is about whether you need to be from land or even from chattel, or whether the issue is about whether you need to be encumbered or unencumbered, and we're going to reverse it. Now, what does it mean we're going to reverse it? So there's a position of Rashi which is complicated, which I'm not going to get into. I'll just tell you how Tosfos reads it, but now I have to actually reread Tosfos to remind myself how he reads it. Hold on. So what he says is like this. We've been assuming that the Tanakama is more strict to Rachel's kids. That the Tanakama, because the Tanakama only mentioned Leah's kids. It says Leah's kids come and collect, right? It sounds like they're totally writing off Rachel's kids. And the problem, okay, that's what we've been assuming. And the problem was that Rabbi Shimon seems to be writing in Rachel's kids, but he seems to also be being more strict. He says, if you've got a dinar, then you're entitled. Sounds like he's making a new demand, whereas actually what he's doing is he's being more lenient. He's saying Rachel's kids can get it. Okay, so what the Gemara is saying is, let's assume that the Tanakama actually, the only reason the Tanakama wrote off Rachel's kids was the Tanakama was talking about a case that there was no extra dinar. So when the Tanakama said Leah's kids come and get, and he ignored Rachel's kids, that would be because there was no extra dinar. That's the only reason. In principle, Rachel's kids should get according to the Tanakama. But the implicit point is, once there's an extra dinar, then of course Rachel's kids are going to get. So the Tanakama is lenient. As long as there's any extra dinar, the Rachel's kids are going to get. Comes along Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon is more strict. And this is Rabbi Shimon's language. No, only if there is a real extra dinar. What does real extra dinar mean? One of the two things we said, either real that it's of land and not chattel, and two, it's unencumbered. Okay, so it's basically what we said before, but the only reason we weren't able to say it before was because we said the language sounds like Rabbi Shimon is being strict, and we were making it lenient. So now we're having him being strict. The Tanakama ignored Rachel's kids because there was no extra dinar, but once there's any extra dinar, the Tanakama will say Rachel's kids get it, and Rabbi Shimon says, no, they're only going to get it if it's a real extra dinar, if it's land and unencumbered.
So Rabbi Shimon is not lenient.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, we basically though, if you got confused with all of that, again, the basic point is we still have the question of when they're coming from different positions, they're coming as special heirs, they're coming as creditors. In principle, are Rachel's kids entitled? It sounds like we're moving to say yes, 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 even though there's indications that some would argue in principle. We keep on trying to insist everybody would agree in principle Rachel's kids are entitled. But then the question is, what about the special other requirement? What about the other requirements of being an extra dinar and so on? How exactly do you determine what those criteria are? Do you satisfy it if you use the money to pay off a creditor? Do you satisfy it if it's chattel? Do you satisfy it if it's land but it's encumbered? Those are the questions that are really at stake.
I want to would you clarify how to read this when the Gemara says b'nei chorin or misha abdei? Are those phrases describing the human beings that they're not encumbered by a loan?
No,
it's actually the land itself.
The land, right?
So the land can be described as b'nei chorin.
Right, exactly.
Right, that's what I want to know.
Yes,
And dinars for putot. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So now the Gemara says no, it's for zuz. So the Gemara says like this. Okay. We are coming in for a landing. Okay, says Rav Papa, says Marzutra in the name of Rav Papa. Hilchasa, the halacha is achas b'chayev, achas b'moso, yesh lem ksuvas b'nei dichrin. Thank you. There's a reason we kept on insisting and trying to say that everybody said this. Clearly, the Gemara was coming to the position that everybody, we don't want to acknowledge that anybody disagrees with that. Everybody says that Rachel's kids are always entitled to their special inheritance. Okay, which makes sense, right? Again, going back to the social reasons for this, societal reasons for this, if I'm going to give my daughter a big a big dowry, what the heck do I care whether the other wife's kids, whether the other wife died before or after the husband. I want my daughter's kids to get this dowry. I'm not giving her a lot of money unless I know that the dowry is going to her kids and not to somebody else's kids. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether Leah's kids are going to feel, oh, it's not fair, we didn't get a special inheritance. Tough luck. Okay, Rachel's kids are always entitled to their special inheritance. Again, assuming the principle of Moser Diner. 1 minute. Let's just read a little bit more. So it's Rachel's kids are always entitled to it, even if Leah's kids are coming from a different perspective. 1 minute. Did I skip a line? No. And also, there has to be leftover money for them to get it, but if there was money that was used to pay off Leah's kids, that counts as the leftover money. Okay, so because that's like Leah and Rachel's kids inherited it all equally. Some of the money that they all equally inherited were used off to pay off the creditors, which happened to be Leah's kids, and therefore that is considered leftover money. So now Rachel's kids can come ahead and take their special portion.
$10,000.
No, you just needed something. If all that was left when Reuben died was $20,000, so that Leah's kids were paid off from the $20,000 here, then ironically Rachel's kids get even less, because then there was nothing that they, beyond the $20,000 that they all equally inherited. But if there was $20,001, okay, and then Leah's kids were paid off, so now, so some of that cut into the $20,000. Nevertheless, since one of those dollars was used to pay off Leah's kids, was outside the chunk that Rachel's kids are going to get, then that was a Moser Diner that entitled Rachel's kids to that.
For just $10,000 though, because there's only $20,000 to begin with.
Yeah, yes.
So they're not really getting anything.
Well, yes, they are, because then they're not dividing the rest equally. They're just taking all of the rest. Yes.
Does gender have to do with inheritance here at all?
Absolutely. The daughters don't get anything. Now, wait. I shouldn't say that, because the same way there's this thing about no. The same way I was being a little flip, because the same biblically
What
that's
if all
true.
the children are girls?
Biblically, we'll get to that. And but biblically, there is the same way. Biblically, the daughters don't get unless there's no boys. But the same way, there's this status of ksuvas benin dichrin, which by the way means male sons, to give Rachel's kids a sort of a special status. There's also a ksuva of a special ksuva of daughters, right? Which is basically that the daughters sort of became half heirs, even if there were sons, and the rabbis gave them some special piece of the estate as well. But we haven't gotten to that yet. Yes, Jonathan.
Wasn't there a time in the discussion that we were sort of elevating the B'nai Different to the status of Balei Tov and giving them a
Yes, good point. The Gemara made the point earlier yesterday and said from here it's clear that they're not, that they are right, that there's heirs, which has pluses and minuses. Here it's got somewhat of a minus because first Leah's kids get to take their piece out.
And what do we say about the Talmud?
All right, let's keep on reading. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. We didn't decide anything yet. So the Gemara says like this. Okay, now, B'Shleima, so now the Gemara says, why did you have to tell me both of those principles? A, that Rachel's kids are entitled, and B, that paying off Leah's ksuva counts as the moster dinar. So if you just told me Rachel's kids are entitled, and you didn't say paying off Leah's ksuva counted as the extra money, so then I wouldn't have known the second part. I would have said, Ika moser dinar ini lolo, only if there's leftover money after Leah's kids had been paid off, and that the money paid off, used to pay off Leah's kids, doesn't count as the extra money. So that's why you needed to tell me that. Ella, but why not just tell me the second part of the statement? Just tell me when Rachel's kids, when the ksuva debt is paid off, that counts as extra money. The ana yadan, and I would have known that the only reason you have to tell me that is because you're telling me that Rachel's kids are entitled, right? You don't say first of all Rachel's kids are entitled. Second of all, if they're using the money to pay off Leah's kids, that counts as the extra money. Okay, now of course that's a nice, clear way to say it. Like, why should you have to tell me in as terse of a way possible to confuse me? But okay, like if I say, why don't you just tell me? You know what? If you use the money to pay off Leah's ksuva, then Rachel's, that counts as the extra money. I would say, why are you telling me that? It must mean that in principle Rachel's kids are entitled. So why did you have to tell me both stages? So the Gemara is going to tell me because of the case of 3 wives. Okay, so okay, just when you thought we were actually coming to some clear resolution here. So the Gemara says, oh my, okay, so if you just start, if the only thing you had said is paying off Leah's ksuva counts as the extra money, I would have said that in the case of Rachel's kids and Leah's kids, like when some are heirs and some are creditors, Rachel's kids don't get their special role. So then why do you have to tell me paying off a ksuva counts as extra money? For the following case. He's married to 3 wives. Rachel and Leah died in his life, and now Rachel and Leah's kids are both ksuvas benin dichrin, and they're both coming on equal standing, and there's no question that they both go ahead and take their portion out, right? The whole question was achas b'chai v'achas b'moso, different standing. Here they're equal standing. Their mothers both died first. Father died. They're now coming to get their special portions. Okay, but is there a moser dinar or not? Right? So the ones that got the bigger portion, they want there to be a moser dinar. Is there a moser dinar? Well, there is some extra money left over, but you know what it's needed for? It's needed to pay the ksuva of the third wife who's still alive. Okay, so the and then the third wife died after the husband died, or she didn't have to die. It's not really relevant. And the third wife, she's only got girls. So then it's not like her heirs are going to say, oh, it's unfair. You guys got a special portion and I didn't get a special portion. She's a girl, so of course she's not going to get a portion. So there's not that question. So, right, you should be used to that. Exactly. The law of Bas Yerushi. So in that case,
you will all be born female.
Thank you. So in that case, there could be a reason to say that paying off the ksuva counts as moser dinar, and still say that the principle of ksuvas benin dichrin only applies when everybody is on an equal, when all the boys are on an equal playing field. In the case of 3 wives, you would have needed that ruling. Okay, to say that since the boys are on an equal playing field, we have ksuvas benin dichrin, the extra dinar exists because it was you to pay off the third ksuva. Okay. But I might have still thought that if the boys are coming from different levels, one set is coming as heirs and the other set is coming as creditors. And those that are coming right as creditors, right, are male, and therefore they would have been heirs, but now they're coming as creditors. I might be afraid that let's not let Rachel's kids take their special status as special heirs, because Leah's kids will say, wait, we're heirs as well. Why do you guys get a special status and we don't? Kamash Malon, that we're not concerned with that. So basically, bottom line is that we say Rachel's kids are still entitled to their special status as heirs. As we said, of course, that makes sense, because that's one going to encourage fathers, again, in that sort of patriarchal society, fathers to give dowries to their daughters, knowing it will stay with their family. And it doesn't matter that Leah or her kids are coming, from a different perspective, are coming as creditors and not as heirs. They're still entitled. But you still need, that extra dinar to allow all of this to take effect. That extra must over money in the estate, and that leftover money, though, could even be money that is used to pay off a creditor, even money that's used off to pay Leah or her kids as well. Okay, 20,001. Okay, now we're finally going to see in this Mishnah everything we've been assuming, this rule of Moser Dinar, and that question, as we've already alluded to, about what that Moser Dinar has to be. Yes.
What part is the support of the surviving female children take?
So that actually does take prior support to pretty much everything else, and we're going to see that as well. Okay, which basically, the daughters get fed and the kids have to go begging. The sons have to go begging.
So these
Okay.
the first children can actually come out 10,000 ahead, for example,
Yes.
before they divide anything.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Phew. So now we get to the more basic case which we've been referring to. What did I say? Mason?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Somebody was married to two wives and they both died before he did. So now he saved paying out either of their ksuvas. But now he's going to die, and both of their kids are now finally going to want their mother's ksuva paid out. They're going to come as heirs to their mother's ksuva. And then he died. Now the heirs, Rachel's kids and Leah's kids each want to take their mother's ksuva out of the estate. The ein sham elo shtei ksuvot, and there's only the exact amount in the estate to pay off Rachel's ksuva and Leah's ksuva, and nothing would be left. Okay, so that's what we've been talking about. That nothing left is a problem. So the halacha is cholkim b'shaveh. So in that case, if there's going to be nothing left over, everybody loses their special status and it's divided equally. So the only people who want the special status are the ones that have the bigger amount. Okay. By the way, I just want to point out, it doesn't even actually really have to be the bigger amount. It just has to be proportionally bigger. Meaning, if Rachel has one kid and Leah has 10 kids, right? So they could both have a ksuva of the exact equal amount, $10,000. Okay, but Rachel is going to want the special rule to apply. Rachel's kids, because then he goes away with $10,000 by himself, right? Whereas Leah's kids, they would have to divide it among 10, 1,000 each. So the desire to have the special status is not necessarily that your mother has a bigger ksuva, but that it's your share is proportionally bigger. All right. Anyway,
when we say chokos b'shaveh, we mean that, like, let's say that Rachel has one boy and Leah has one boy. That one boy would still get like 2/3 of it, right? Because he's the boy.
Yeah. You would apply the laws of Bechor too. Okay. Now, Hayasham Moser Dinar, if there was a dinar left over, finally now we're saying that rule in the Mishnah, after everybody would take out their special inheritance, Elu notling ksuvas iman, ve'elu notling ksuvas iman. Then each side is entitled to take out their mother's ksuva, and then what you divide the estate with is that extra dinar. That goes to normal rules. Im amru yisomim. I'm not now here. Finally, is of course what everybody wants to know. The ones who want the special rule to apply, but there's not going to be any leftover money in the estate. They say, no problem. We'll make a donation to the estate, right? Im amru yisomim. Anachnu malim al nichsei avinu yafet dinar. We're going to go ahead and we'll add money to the estate. In order that they could go ahead and collect their mother's ksuva. You know what? Ain shomim lahem. You don't listen to them. Okay, what a surprise. So, Ella, shominess and nechasim bevesi. Now, you evaluate the money by the court. The court, sort of assesses, I should say, the value, and that's what determines it or not. Now, by the way, ma'alim might also not just mean we're going to add money to the estate, but what they might actually say is, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to be very generous. We're going to take this piece of land, which is the court would estimate at $8,000, and we'll consider it to be worth $10,000, and we'll take that for our mother's ksuva. So even though they're sacrificing $10,000, in the end, they're benefiting because that allows them to have that special status, because that's going to leave over extra money in the estate. So the Mishnah is saying is they don't get to determine how much it's worth, even if they're making it worth like more than it's really worth, and willing essentially to take a cut. That doesn't matter. The court assesses what it's worth, and the court is going to determine whether there's extra money in the estate or not. 1 minute, let's finish reading. Hayusham nechasim beroy. Let's say there was money which was coming in, but it had not yet arrived, okay? Which basically could mean that they're anticipating that somebody is going to die and the estate will inherit other funds, or it might even mean trees with fruit, or it might even mean that somebody owes money to the estate and they have not yet collected those funds. So do you accounts receivable? So do you consider that part of the money of the estate to determine that there is a moser dina or not? So einan kibemuchzak, that is not like money under control of the estate, and that does not get counted. Okay, now but it depends on the case. Reb Shimon Omer, now finally we get the Reb Shimon quoted earlier, even if there is money, leftover money, but it is chattel, it is not land, that doesn't count either. There has to be land that goes beyond the value of the two ksuvas worth a dinar. Wait, Jonathan had his hand up first. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Do we know that they're continuing the discussion of any different, or are these just two different sets of Yorshim, one with a larger claim than the other?
No, nobody has any larger claim. The only reason you'd have a larger claim, the only person who has a larger claim if it's Yorshim is the Bechor. Otherwise, no set has a larger claim. Right?
You meant the larger ksuva.
No. So if it's a larger ksuva amount, that's because it's ksuva spin indichrin. The only reason you have a larger claim, because you have a larger ksuva, is ksuva spin indichrin. If it weren't for ksuva spin indichrin, who cares how big your mother's ksuva was? It never got paid out. The mother died before the father. The only reason you're entitled to take out that amount is because of ksuva spin indichrin. That says that even though the mother died and she never took out the ksuva amount, now that my father has died, that allows me to get this bigger portion of the estate. Exactly. Yes.
Chattel could be worth a fortune.
Exactly. So that's why Rabbi Shimon's position is that it represents the sort of symbolic significance of the estate, right? I mean, if you read the end of Bamidbar, whatever, the whole big thing is like they're dividing up the land, and Benos Tzulavchad, which is all about a portion in the land, right? So it's all that sort of represents the ancestral estate. So it is that symbolic significance. Yes.
You have built into it, the Beit Din can't be egregious in over assessing. But it puts power in the hands of the
my God, sure.
Right. It puts power in the
Absolutely.
To apply the rabbinic instrument to ensure that the father would know that the daughter's inheritance is going to.
It's an interesting point. Like, how much is basing going to be just guided? Because there's always going to be a certain amount of discretion, right? I mean, how do you estimate the cost of this? Is it the blue book value of the car? Is it this value or whatever? How much is basing going to sort of try to do it in order to ensure that different kicks in?
To maintain the biblical foundation, but to also ensure the rabbinic instrument.
It's an interesting point. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say about that, but this mission is more Gemara-like in terms of we've crossed the line, because there's no fixed price for real estate.
Right.
Which is always subject to negotiation.
Right.
So there's no such case in reality. This is more of a
but then
the Gemara thing, where the Gemara comes up with some ingenious way to resolve exactly how the mission applies.
Right, but you have to do your best. I mean, when you get a property assessor to come and determine it for property taxes or whatever, right? Exactly. It's not in the end the amount of money that you're going to get if you would ever sell it, but you have to be able to put some theoretical price tag on it. Yeah.
Two questions. One, the last thing about not dealing with movable property, is this affected by the later Takana the Geonim, where you could get marriage contacts from?
Assuming we were to pass like Rabbi Shimon, you're saying would it be affected once in the time of the Geonim they moved to a completely commercial society, so the status of karka, cattle had been given the equal weight to karka. That could be. That would be relevant if we pass into Rabbi Shimon, which it looks like we actually do based on the little letter here. So I'd have to see how that developed. Yeah.
And the second is accounts payable. Similarly, for accounts receivable, they now are known to have cash value, and might they actually be considered?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll take a look. We're not going to get today. I mean, we have 7 minutes anyway, but we're not even getting on today's daf up to the issue about Roy and Muchzak, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah.
If this applies today, do we have a different framework because our economy is based
Yeah, so
on
that's
accounts
similar to
receivable?
what Charlie asked. So, you're saying about, in terms of the issue about accounts payable, accounts receivable, maybe that also would be reassessed based on how we look at it nowadays. It's an interesting question. I don't know. All right, let's take a look. Let's see if we can get to turning the page. Tanur Lazu Elef, Lazu Chamesh Meos. So one set of kids, their mother's ksuva is 1,000. The other set is 500. So the ones that are 1,000 want the special rule to apply. Yesham Moser Dinar, Elu Notling Suvasim, Velu Notling Suvasiman, Vimlav Yachlok B'Shaveh. All right, so that doesn't add too much to the Mishnah. Nevertheless, if there's 1,501, then they each one gets their special status. If not, they divide it equally. Now the Gemara says like this. Pshita, it's obvious to me, says the Gemara. Merubim v'nisma'atu. There was, let's use the immediate previous case that we just quoted. There was $1,501 in the estate when the guy died, and now stuff has depreciated or the market has changed, and now it's only worth $1,400. Okay, so kvar zachu behen yorshin. So the heirs got their special status. Right, because you look at the property at the time that the guy died and the value of the estate at that time.
Even if it hasn't been divided, is that what you're saying?
Even if it hasn't been divided. Now the question might be what if it's even before Beis Din assessed it? Let's say Beis Din assessed it a month after the guy died, but they looked back and they said, but at the time he died, it actually was worth 1,501. That might be enough. Okay, so that's an interesting question. When do you determine its value for this? So he says, if it sounds like, okay, it goes by what it originally was. We have not made it clear when the assessment took place. How about, however, muatim v'nisrabuma? Let's say when the guy died, it was 1,490, and now then it's maybe when Beis Din assessed it, or they're coming to collect it, or whatever. Maybe now it's 1,501. Should that maybe say, look, as long as in any situation you can allow these ksuvas b'ninterchen to kick in, you'll go by it, whether it goes by the state originally or whether it goes by the state now. You always just go by the way it was when the guy died. So let's take a look. Tashma, come in here. The Nichsei Debei Bar Tzartzur, the property of the house of Tzartzur, Mu'at was the guy's name or whatever. Mu'atim v'nisrabuhav. It was exactly this case. When he died, there was not enough to pay out the ksuvos, and then it became the value went up. Avalsu l'kamid to Rav Amram, and the heirs came to Rav Amram. Amalu, he said to them, Zio faisinuhu. Go, and the way Rashi explains it is, he said to the ones that were coming with the smaller ksuva, go, make some deal with the ones with the bigger ksuva. Okay, which basically means to say, it sounds like he's basically saying that in principle, the ones with the bigger ksuva will be entitled to take their portion out now that it's worth more. And if you don't want that to happen, you'd better try to make some deal with them. Okay, so that's a little vague what exactly he was ruling, but he was trying to get them to come to some pshara. Lo ashkechu, they ignored him. Amar lahu, he said to them, Iloma faisisu lahu, if you don't try to appease them, machina lahu b'silu d'lo mivadama. I will hit you with a board with a thorn that does not draw blood. What thorn doesn't draw blood? The thorn of rabbinic excommunication. So it'll be very painful, but it will not be physical pain. Okay, so anyway, he was trying to compel them to come to some type of a deal, which might mean that he did not know how to rule, so he was trying to get them to come to some pshara or something. Okay. Shadrinu, that was not getting anywhere.
That's the way
okay,
to solve a hung jury, right?
Right. So, using strong arm tactics didn't get him anywhere. So he sent them to Rav Nachman to resolve this. Rav Nachman said to them, the same way when they're a lot and then they go down in value, the heirs of the bigger, of the bigger portion get it. So similarly, when it's a lot and it's now bigger, the heirs in it get it. Now, of course, the big question is, which heirs, right? So Rashi and Tosfos debate what the conclusion was. Rashi says it means that the heirs of the smaller amount wind up benefiting, that actually you always go by what it was at the time of death. And Tosfos says, no, the language is exactly the same. So if when it was a big and then it went down, the heirs of the bigger ksuva got their bigger ksuva. So when it was a little and went up, the heirs of the bigger ksuva get their bigger ksuva. And you always tip in favor of applying the rules of ksuvas b'nin dechrin. Okay, so this is the question. Do you always go by the value of the estate when the guy died? Or do you always go by either what it was worth then or what it's worth now, if either one of those will allow us to apply the rule of the special status of heirs? So that's what Tosfos says. Tosfos says you always try to apply the special status of Benin Dichrin, and Rashi says you always go by the time the guy dies. All right, let's try to read one more case. Hahu Gavra Davu Maski Be Alpha Zuze. A certain person, he owed $1,000. Havuli Tre Apadani, and he had two what are these called? Houses, yeah, some type of a man, right? Okay, two houses. Now, Zavinu Chad b'chamisha meya, v'chad b'chamisha meya. He went and he sold each one at 500. So I owed somebody $1,000. I sold my two houses to Michael for $500 each. Now I've got the cash and I can, pay off my balcho. But who knows? Maybe I went there and I wasted that on a trip to Las Vegas. So now my balcho still needs his $1,000, and he's going to go to Michael, who's got two houses, each one worth $500. So what did he do? So he came to Michael and he took the first house for $500, and Michael saw he was about to now take the second house. Now Michael really liked these houses. He didn't want the guy to take the houses. So what is Michael going to do? So Michael went ahead and says the following. He was about to take the second house. So Michael took $1,000 and went to it, the creditor. Amarle, and he said to him, look, I'm going to tell you something, buddy. The first house you took, I think in my eyes it's worth $1,000. I think your debt is paid up. If you want to consider it that that's the full $1,000 and the debt is paid up, fine. Then leave me alone and don't take the second house. Now he says, the guy says, I don't think it's worth $1,000. I don't think it's worth 500. Fine. So he says, fine. You don't think it's worth $1,000? So here, take $1,000 and give me back the house. Okay, which basically means that Michael wants to keep, at least one of the houses, if not both of them. Okay, so basically what he's going to do is he's going to say to the guy, I will assess the value of that first house at $1,000. If you don't like that assessment, okay, then I will pay you the $1,000, but you're not going to be entitled to take both houses. So are you sort of like entitled to negotiate, as it were, with a person and to claim, here's what I'm assessing the value to be? You don't like it? Fine, I'll give you $1,000 elsewhere, but don't take the two houses. Okay? So the Gemara has
something to say about that?
What?
Could it bet didn't have something to
Well,
say
yes,
about
so
that?
that's Gemara's question, and the Gemara is going to say that seems to be similar to the Mishnah, where the heirs are saying, we'll consider this to be worth X amount that will then entitle it to be that there'll be extra money left in the estate. So are you allowed to do that if at a certain level it's to your own detriment, because, but in principle, you're doing it because it benefits you in terms of your negotiation.
Well, in general,
Yeah.
In general, if the creditor comes to the guy who bought the house under lien,
Yeah.
he doesn't have the right to buy him out.
So that's what Tosfos discusses. Tosfos wants to know, does this reflect a general principle that the guy can always say, take cash, don't take the thing you've got a lien on? So it sounds like it might. Of course, if it did, then you wouldn't have to say that he was giving a special value to it. So Tosfos tries to work that out. Let's just read one line in the Gemara, and we'll end with that for today. The Gemara says like this. So Rami Bar Chama Lamemer Hainu Mas Nisan. This is our Mishnah. Im Amru Yisomim Hareinu Malim Al Nichse Avinu Yafed Dinar. That the heirs say we're going to evaluate it to be worth more, and we don't let them. We say Beis Din has to evaluate it. You're not entitled to assess what it's worth. Amalei Rava. So Rava said Midami. It's not the same. Hasam Islay Pseida. There, by one set of heirs giving it a higher value, the other set of heirs lose out, right? Because then they get their special status. It doesn't get divided equally. Liasmi, hacha, misay pseida. Since the creditor isn't losing out, alpha yayiv, alpha shakil. So maybe he wanted those nice houses, but at the end of the day, he's getting his full $1,000. So maybe Michael is in a position to say, buddy, if you want to keep that, I'm saying it's worth $1,000. You don't like that? Fine, take the cash, but you're not entitled to take both houses. So the Gemara doesn't exactly know, and it says like this. V'tirfa become a kasvina. So the Gemara pretty much assumes that maybe actually Michael is entitled to say that. So the guy went ahead and he said, fine, I really want the house. I don't want your $1,000. I'll just take one house. I would have liked to take two, but given that you're saying what you're saying, I'll just take one. Now Michael's going to come back to me and say, hey, Dove, you owe me money because one of the houses I bought was just taken by the creditor. How much money can Michael get from me? By giving the guy one house, he's now freed me of my full $1,000 loan. Okay, but he only lost out $500 of his purchase price. How much reimbursement is he entitled to get from me? So we'll just read this one line. So it says like this. Kama Kasvina and Ravina Marba Alpha, he's entitled to get $1,000 because he basically got me out of $1,000 loan, and that's essentially how much it was worth. He says, hey, it seems that it was worth $1,000. The creditor took it for that. Give me back $1,000. And the other one says, Rav Avi Amar b'chamisha me'ah. No, it was only $500. You made a very brilliant deal there, but bottom line is you only lost a field worth $500. So I really only have to give him back $500. So everybody wins. I only paid up $500 for a $1,000 loan. Michael got to keep one of his houses. The creditor got his $1,000. Shalom al Yisrael. Okay.
That feels like ribbon.
Yeah, there's something real strange about that.
Coming back to the question of when we